is here. The champ 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 is here.
All right. Hey, this is the Ed Great Commission Radio Show. And you know what? We're back again. The third Saturday of the month. Legal Standpoint with Michael J. Todd.
Michael J. I appreciate that, man.
Yeah.
You got it right this week.
Yeah, I put a G in it normally because, you're just so G. It's like, you like a OG, man.
Oh, really? Well, I would appreciate that, but it's J.
I know.
So I like that. I don't know if my parents were still here, if they would appreciate the G.
No, I know they wouldn't.
They wouldn't. They like the J.
Yeah, I know they like the J. I like the J.
But, I appreciate you.
Hey, man, I appreciate you, brother. I mean, you looking pretty sharp, man. You coming in, man.
You know what they say? Broken clocks right 2 times a day.
Yeah, man.
Every now and then.
I mean,
I can put something together.
I mean, you look like an attorney, man.
Do I really?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay, well, I appreciate that.
You look like an attorney, man.
So I look like myself.
You look like yourself.
All right.
You look like yourself.
Well, okay, well, every now and then.
Every now and then.
Every now and then.
Okay.
You know how it goes.
Right. Yeah.
Old boy from Oak Cliff, like you like to say.
Like we say. Yeah. We ain't just some old boy from Oak Cliff just talking.
Right.
We know our stuff, man.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah,
without a doubt. Got to do some research.
So what's going on, man? We during hour number 1, we talk about all politics as being local, man, and I know all politics is being local, man. What's locally happening on the national scene, man?
Well, you know what's going on. I mean, everything's going on politically, but we're focused in as we get ready for the Supreme Court nomination of Ketanji Brown Jackson, which will start tomorrow. Tomorrow, Monday, the 21st of January. Mm-hmm. Excuse me, what's tomorrow? 21st of March. Right.
Yeah.
And so that nomination confirmation hearing will be starting tomorrow. So we wanted to kind of talk about the process as it relates to the nomination, the hypocrisy that has occurred in the past with respect to Supreme Court nominations, and then some of the roadblocks or, I'm going to say speed bumps that she may encounter as she prepares for her perch there on the Supreme Court.
All right. Now, how did we get in a situation where she was nominated?
Well, she was nominated by Biden. We had a situation where there was a previous Supreme Court justice, which is the name of Stephen Breyer. Breyer has indicated that he's going to retire as long as a replacement will be fulfilled or will be confirmed prior to his retirement. It just so happened that Ketanji Brown Jackson actually was a law clerk for Breyer before. So I know he knows her well. And that President Biden went through an exhaustive list of qualified black women because, as you remember, during Biden's presidential campaign, he promised that if he was elected that he would appoint a black female to the Supreme Court if a position became open. And so that's what he's doing. And so he went through an exhaustive list. We had to hark and cry from all the Republicans. And, the hypocrisy, Ed, is just really kind of astounding at times.
Now, how is it a hypocrisy, man?
Okay. The thing is this. Biden indicated that he was going to nominate a black female to this bench, all right, before he even won the presidential election. Now,
is that the right thing to do?
Well, it's not the wrong thing to do. I mean, I think it's something that individuals would like to know what is going to be an individual's course of action as running for president as it relates to an important position such as a Supreme Court position. Now, if you remember, back in 2015-16, when 45 was running, he promulgated or he gave out a list of individuals that he said that he would pick from that preset list individuals that would be available for consideration for nominations on the Supreme Court that occurred during his term. And everyone that he picked, of the three people, Gorsuch, Amy Coney Barrett, and then also Kavanaugh, all of those individuals were on that list. Now, there was no hark and cry from the Republicans at that point that by having this list, which didn't have too many black folks on it, that having this list was some kind of way, some type of preferential treatment or affirmative action or anything of that nature. However, when it gets to be the point where Biden is about to fulfill his presidential campaign policy, then we hear all this stuff about, oh, well, we're not getting the best candidate because this is an affirmative action pick, things of that nature. So the hypocrisy of it, where it's okay for 45 to be able to designate who the individuals are, however, we can't designate the type of person that the nominee would be with respect to Biden. So I mean, it just smacks just really just of hypocrisy, like I've said a few times already, and just, but that's standard fare for the Republicans,
Why do you think it's standard fare for them outside the fact they've done it before?
The thing is, if we look at the Supreme Court and how it has yo-yoed over time, and when I say yo-yoed, I'm talking about them yo-yoing with the Supreme Court.
Huh.
Now, the thing is this: back in 2016, there was going to be an election in November of that year. But if you remember, back in February of 2016. Was it 16? Oh,
yeah.
15. 16. 2016, there was a Supreme Court justice that passed, Anton Scalia. Scalia was like the leading conservative on the Supreme Court. But that's basically from February to November. That's a 9-month type of span there. And the Republicans who were in the Senate and controlled the Senate at the time indicated at that time that the election is so close that we cannot allow a Supreme Court nominee by Barack Obama to be considered and voted on, because the will of the people needs to be taken into account in determining who the president will be to appoint that person.
But what does that got to do with it? If someone dies today, shouldn't you act upon the death then instead of waiting 9 months?
Well, that's the way it's always worked in the past. We've never really had a situation where the Senate just decided that they were going to stonewall a nomination. Now, the thing is this, Obama back then, and, that's one thing that I've always taken issue with Obama, because he did not, in this context, he did not acknowledge what he was dealing with. They were saying already that they were not going to consider the nomination. And when Anton Scalia died, Congress was not in session. Obama could have done what we call a recess appointment, where he could have appointed someone prior to Congress convening again, and then they would have had to have considered that person within the next year to get the nomination or not. Now, in light of the fact that we lost the election,
you got my jaws tight on that one, man.
Okay.
Yeah, the reason why you got my, I'm sorry. I normally, I'm like, in Living Color, don't say nothing bad about Miss Jenkins.
Right.
I'm like, don't say nothing bad about President Obama.
Well, and I feel that way too. Obama was my man.
Yeah,
But the thing
I'm
is,
going like, why didn't he do that? And he playing nice, and it's like, I myself, I would have did what Joseph Biden is doing now. If I was the president, I'm trying to look directly into whichever microphone, camera you want me to look into. If I was the president, I would have put in Ketanji Brown Jackson then and have them deny her and then totally make it what it is.
Right.
You trying to deny this sister from getting there because I am a brother and that's what you're doing.
Right. Well, but the thing is this. The one thing about Obama was this.
You too nice?
Is that he was too nice, and sometimes what he tried to do was to overextend himself to be what he considered to be fair. Now,
which is a lot what a lot of black people in positions of power do.
Right, because the thing is this.
What they do.
Is that when he was confronted with the fact that Scalia had passed, he went through, and I believe he picked an individual that he thought had a chance to be accepted by the Republicans by nominating Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland was known as being an individual that was even-handed, somebody that could work on both sides of the aisle, somebody who was a moderate, not what they considered to be, an extremist or a liberal, or whatever, radical, or whatever they want to say, right? So I think he was trying to appease to get that through. But the thing is this: you got to take them for what their word was, and the word was that, hey, look, they weren't going to do it, and they didn't do it. So in essence, what happened is that we got cheated out of a Supreme Court pick.
Because we didn't do what we could have done from the very beginning, which was a recess appointment.
Well, we could have, but the fact of the matter is this, though.
Okay.
The fact of the matter
Jaw's still tight, I'm sorry.
Jaw's still tight, okay. But we lost the election, right? And we lost, we still didn't overtake the Senate.
Right.
So whether that person would have been confirmed as a recess appointment is speculative at best. Okay.
I like it when you talk lawyer-like, speculative at best.
Speculative.
Right.
So even though I don't like the way he did it, it may have ended up the same way anyway. Okay? So that being the case, hey, all right, well, But we did. The real culprit was the posture that the Republicans took in saying that they would not even consider the nomination. That was the real culprit. We were 9 months away from the election. There should have been an individual that was nominated and considered and voted upon.
And who was running the show?
Mitch McConnell.
Okay.
Mitch McConnell. So that's the one thing in the process, right? So then Trump gets elected. And then when he gets elected, he has his list that he's promulgated before. Promulgated, that means, he acknowledged it, he presented it, things of that nature.
I was waiting for that. I was trying to Wikipedia that word. Right, I couldn't spell it.
I understand. All right. Well, I know we're from Oak Cliff, so we want to break it down.
I know.
All right. But anyway, so he had promulgated this list, and he picked Gorsuch from the list. He picked Kavanaugh from the list. All right. They won the election. Okay, that's great, right? But of course, the Gorsuch position was the position that was stolen, all right, by the Republicans not acting. But then what do? We have a new election that's coming up in 2020. And at that time, of course, the Republicans, when Obama had Scalia pass, they were like, no, we can't have this done so close to the election. We just can't do it. The will of the people must be taken into consideration. So 38 days before the election, we have Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies. And what does Mitch McConnell say when confronted with his own words as it relates to we should not fill this position? You know what he said?
What's that?
Oh, we're going to fill it. So in the span of 38 days, they filled that position with Amy Coney Barrett.
So we have an election now. Right. Going by the same rules that they had then we should not have had Amy Coney Barrett either.
Right. Right. If you're going to say that the same policy directives, the same policy considerations that kept you from considering Merrick Garland when Scalia died, if those are present or if those were valid, those same principles would have applied in this situation when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died 38 days during the election. And you know what? It was 38 days, Ed. At that time, some states were already voting. Early voting. You follow? I can't remember exactly if Texas was voting, but we had extra days of voting because of the pandemic, right? So we could have been voting at the time that this lady died and Amy Coney Barrett was considered. So if people are voting, don't you think it would be prudent that we wait to see the results of the election to make a determination as important as a Supreme Court nomination? But no, they couldn't do that, because their words meant nothing initially. It was nothing but to obstruct, to confuse, to try to keep people from having someone on that Supreme Court who saw what the day-to-day activities of people, or how they're impacted by the activities. So it was just really, it was really. So that's when I say the hypocrisy of the process when we're talking about the Republicans. Yeah, it's just astounding, to be honest. It really is.
So now as we go into this situation here with Ketanji Brown Jackson, KBJ.
KBJ.
All
okay.
Right. Yeah, we started rolling that out just like that. So that being said, what are the Republicans doing now? What are they doing?
Well, okay. Well, the first thing we started hearing, of course, was the old, this is an affirmative action deal.
Affirmative action.
Affirmative action. They said that.
How come anytime anybody black does something, it's always affirmative action?
Well, you know what? That's because they feel.
Unless somebody being put in jail, then it's not affirmative action.
Right. Well, that's because they feel that black folks ain't qualified to do anything. Okay. So no matter where you are, and no matter what you did to get in that station, people think that, oh, he's just here because they gave him a leg up. Oh, he took the place of someone else. Oh, my score was better than him. I've read cases before, on affirmative action cases, where people were complaining that they scored 3 points higher than the black dude, right, to be the garbage man. Mm-hmm. Did you hear what I said? Mm-hmm. 3 points higher than that guy to be the garbage man. Now, how smart do you really have to be the garbage man? What difference does it make if I scored 85 and you made 87? Come on, let's be real. We ain't building, a nuclear, reactor or anything. But, so what I'm trying to say is that the simplest things, they say, oh, if there's affirmative action where we're trying to make up for past transgressions, oh, that's so wrong. So with Ketanji Brown Jackson, they started out with, this is Biden didn't even allow himself to consider anyone that was white and male to be considered in this nomination. And, let me ask you this. Do you know how many Supreme Court justices we've had since the founding of this country?
No.
115. Do you know?
You have done your research.
Yeah, 115. 115 have been confirmed. Do you know how many were white male? How many were white?
I would say 111.
112.
I got close.
You got close.
I got close. Okay.
Now.
I felt really good about that.
Right. Now, do you know how many were male?
You didn't tell me there was going to be any math in this, counselor. So how many were male?
110. They've only had 2 black folks, Clarence Thomas and Thurgood Marshall, and some people, the jury's out on Clarence Thomas, but he's black.
Well, who does Clarence Thomas take the place of?
He took Thurgood Marshall's place.
Who was what?
He was black.
And Clarence Thomas is what?
Black.
Would that be an affirmative action deal? Would that be like something like that then? A quota deal?
Well, it seemed kind of be that way. Yeah, right? That was the black seat, Yeah. So we wanted to have
and
some.
Who appointed Clarence Thomas?
I think it was George Bush. I think it was Daddy Bush.
Yeah.
Daddy Bush.
So George Herbert Walker Bush appointed him, and he appointed a black person to replace another black person, but nobody said anything about.
Well, the thing is this. Like I say,
just like the pot calling the kettle black.
Yeah, I know, but
no pun intended.
It's like the jury is kind of out on whether Clarence Thomas was black anyway. But.
Yeah, I heard about one of those last votes. It said 8-1, and everybody looked at him like, it's okay to be unanimous in this. And he's like, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. So with respect to him, but the thing is that out of the 115 individuals that have been Supreme Court justices, there have only been 5 women. Period. You had Sandra Day O'Connor. You had Justice Ginsburg, who just passed. You've had Obama appointed Elena Kagan. He also appointed the first Hispanic, Sonia Sotomayor. And then we have Amy Coney Barrett. So it's only been 5. So my question is that if we're all up in arms as it relates to, this is we're not even considering, all of these other people. The question is that where was that hue and cry when we had 110, right? That were just male. Where was that hue and cry when we've had 112 that were just white, right? And so none of that was expressed then as we're doing affirmative action then with respect to them, because they just felt that, this is how it's supposed to be. So we get bombarded when this nomination comes out. The first thing that we hear is, this is an affirmative action pick. We're not getting the best qualified person, things of that nature. And what Biden said was that I'm going to nominate a qualified black judge. That's what he said. And that was the process that he had to then go through to make a determination of who that person would be as he settled on Ketanji Brown Jackson.
He actually said qualified black person?
Oh, yeah. Well, anybody, if you're going to be a Supreme Court nominee, you can't take somebody from,
But why even say qualified when you put black in front of it? It's like, I'm going to appoint a qualified black person because it puts everyone else in jeopardy. It's like...
Well, the thing is this, though.
The others are not qualified?
Well, the thing is this. When we look at Ketanji Brown Jackson's qualifications, they're outstanding.
What are they?
Well, first, she went to school in Miami, high school. She was on the speech and debate team. She was a star of the team. And they said that she did, won national acclaim, things of that nature on the speech and debate team. She was a high achiever as it relates to her schoolwork. She then went to Harvard, graduated in 4 years from Harvard, and she graduated magna cum laude. All right. Now the thing is this. Personally, I graduated, thank you, Lordy, not magna cum laude. But you have those 3 classifications. You have what? Cum laude, magna cum laude, and summa cum laude. For a person to achieve the rank of magna cum laude, they have to have a grade point average of 3.7 to 3.9 at Harvard. Now, I'm not saying Harvard is, the beginning and end of education, being a Howard Law man myself. But the thing is that they do have a good reputation as it relates to their academic, the level of academic achievement there. So she graduated with a 3.7 to 3.9 magna cum laude, right? Then she applied to Harvard's law school, where she graduated cum laude, which means her grade average in law school was 3.5 to 3.7, somewhere in that range. She was also an editor on the Harvard Law Review. And the Law Review is basically a book that the students put out each year. Mm-hmm. And they'll have 4 little editions of it. And what happens is they write scholarly legal articles. Professors are able to publish information and articles in it. So being on the Law Review is a really big deal when you're in law school, all right? And not only was she on Law Review, she was one of the editors. So that meant that she had the responsibility of going through and actually overseeing other individuals' work to ensure that it was accurate, that it gave detailed information, that it was concise. You know, the things that you look for from that standpoint. So it is a position of great responsibility. You follow me? Because you've got these published articles that are going out. And if these articles aren't correct, then it's going to be a problem for the law review and the reputation that it has. All right? So she attained that type of position, right? After that, she graduated from law school. She ended up being a clerk, as I said earlier, for Judge Stephen Breyer on the Supreme Court. And the thing is that those clerkships are very, very coveted positions. I mean, you've got individuals throughout the country who are from law schools. I graduated from Howard Law School. We've had individuals that were clerks on the Supreme Court. But those are coveted positions that you look at because you're sitting right, you're the right-hand person of the justice themselves. And what's happening is that when these opinions are coming out, a lot of what is being, written, a lot of what's being said can be influenced as it relates to these law clerks and the research that they've done. And of course, it's all by the judge themselves, but the law clerk has a very, very important position. You ever seen that movie, that Ali movie, where they were talking about how he went before the Supreme Court and when he was the conscientious objector? Have you seen that movie before? Right. And you remember it was a law clerk in that movie that was taking issue with respect to the rulings that the court was going to make, and actually had a profound effect of turning his judge and other judges that led to Ali having the unanimous decision that he had to uphold his conscientious objector type status. So those are coveted positions, and she had one of those positions and did well.
All right.
Now that's enough. I mean, you would think that's enough right there, would you not?
I think so, but
not for Tucker Carlson and the rest of those boys, and we'll talk about that in a sec.
All right. All right, we'll be right back. We're going to play a couple of drops, and we are going to go ahead and see what Tucker Carlson has to say about Harvard Law Review.
Hello, I'm Chris Howell, co-founder of the Chris Howell Foundation. The Chris Howell Foundation, our goal is to strengthen individuals and families in the areas of financial literacy, mental health, and health in general. If you need assistance in any of these areas, I invite you today to go and check out our website, chrishowellfoundation.org. That's chrishowellfoundation.org.
Hi, my name is Gail Todd with Townview Realtors. If you find yourself in the market to buy, sell, lease, or maybe you want to be a part of this hot real estate market by investing, just give my team of professionals and I a call at 214-675-9572. Again, that's 214-675-9572. Or you can email me at gtodd88@yahoo.com. With me, it's all about you.
This is Albert Black, and I'm a big fan of Ed Gray and the Commish radio program.
All right. Albert Black's a big fan of the Commish radio show, and he's a big fan of Legal Standpoint with Michael J. Todd.
I appreciate that. I appreciate Mr. Black.
Yep. But Tucker Carlson is not a big fan of justice and obviously KBJ.
You're right. Well, you know what, man? I'm just kind of a little flim-flammed a little bit about Tucker Carlson because I just went through some outstanding qualifications for KBJ to be on the Supreme Court. I mean, would you agree?
Yeah.
I mean, now Tucker Carlson has made a concerted effort that he...
Now, who is Tucker Carlson?
Now, Tucker Carlson is one of the talking heads on Fox News.
There you go.
He is an individual who has one of the little... It's supposed to be a newscast, but it's more like political theater. But, he gets an hour, and, hey, man, Tucker Carlson has... he has coverage, and he has followers, just everywhere, But the thing is that he speaks nonsense. And as it relates to this nomination, this is what he's saying he needs to see. Now, why does Tucker Carlson need to see anything? I mean, he's not a senator. He's just some dude just talking. But you know what Tucker Carlson says he needs to see? To know if this lady is qualified to be a Supreme Court judge?
Her grades at Harvard?
No, he didn't need to see her grades.
Oh, okay.
No. Because we know her grades were at least a 3.5.
But they asked for
3.7.
President Obama's birth certificate. I just stopped.
Yeah. Well, he did ask for that.
Yeah.
But you know what he wants to see?
What's that?
He wants to see her law school admission test results. Law school admission test results. Now, your law school admission test results, it's like the SAT, right? Scholastic Aptitude Test. They call it the law school aptitude test, right? LSAT. So it's basically supposed to be a test that's supposed to help a law school determine whether you're going to be able to matriculate through that school in a satisfactory manner.
That's another word he used.
Matriculate. Yeah, I got that.
Got that one.
So anyway, it's supposed to help, right? To make that determination. Now, I just said she graduated from law school cum laude. I just said she was on the Harvard Law Review. I just said that she was an editor on the Harvard Law Review. I just said she clerked for Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer. So if she's done all of those things, no matter what her LSAT score was, whether it was high, low, or in the middle,
It had to be high.
She
did all that.
She has matriculated with success.
Where did Tucker Carlson go to law school at?
You know what? I don't even know. I don't think he did.
Oh.
I don't think he did. I saw Tucker Carlson one time, man, at the airport. This is before he really blew up, man. And we were going to ride. I was coming out of D.C. And we were about to ride on the plane together. And, man, he was sitting there in that lobby, man, in the little place waiting.
Right.
And I swear, man, I wanted to go over there and get on his ASS right there. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And I have regretted that every day of my life. I should have went and told him what I thought about him.
Were you black?
Yeah, still black, always black.
It wouldn't have been a bad thing. I could have seen that right now. In other news.
So you say I did the right thing?
He probably left him alone, man. Leave him alone.
I wasn't going to try to hit him.
It don't matter, man. This is America, man. Anything could happen. You can look at him wrong and be like, whoa, he felt threatened.
Right.
Yeah.
Trayvon Martin.
Yeah, exactly. I feel
Fernando Castillo.
Yeah, exactly. This is where we at. Other reasons, it'd be like those hashtags, memes about being black,
Right.
Talking to Tucker Carlson.
Talking about black, huh?
Yeah, talking about being black.
Right,
I get that a lot.
Yeah. So, but the thing is this. So he's made some concerted, campaign that they need to see her LSAT scores. Why? She has shown that she has, she's qualified. Now, even after she has, she has clerked for a Supreme Court justice, she's done additional things. She went and worked for the Public Defender's Office. And you know what? From my standpoint, as a criminal defense attorney that handles state and federal cases, it warms me to know that there is going to be a justice on the Supreme Court who has handled not only criminal cases, but has handled criminal cases as a public defender, knowing that these are the individuals that couldn't afford an attorney. Not just, getting somebody, to come in, but couldn't afford an attorney, and to have those individuals come in and represent those people who need those people. It gives you a different perspective, when you're working with individuals, who can't afford to pay you, and some of the things that they have to go through in their day-to-day lives and what led them to the situation that they're in. So I think that would give a unique perspective, to the Supreme Court to have someone. Because I'm going to tell you, some of those Supreme Court justices, man, they've never tried a case in their life.
What do you mean never tried a case in their life?
Well, the thing is this, you have different levels of court. You've got district courts. That's where the action goes on. That's where you try the case. That's where people come in and you have witnesses and, things of that nature, right? That's what, all the movies is based on, what happens in the trial courts. Then when you have a case that goes to trial and is appealed, then you have a situation that the Court of Appeals, they make determinations. Now, what they usually look at is whether there was sufficient evidence to support what the trial court did, or they're looking to see if there was some type of erroneous ruling of evidence or procedure, things of that nature.
Is that how Bill Cosby got out of jail?
You know what? I think that Bill Cosby, on the Court of Appeals, they let him out because they said that the agreement he had made with the DA's office prior to giving some deposition, that couldn't be used in a criminal proceeding. They said that they violated it by
So that's
using
sort of like
it.
what you just said a minute ago.
Right.
Appeals
right.
is okay.
Right.
All right.
Okay. And then you have like the Supreme Court of Texas, you had the Supreme Court of the United States. A lot of times those individuals are looking at cases that may have factual and legal issues, but the pervading issue may be policy considerations as it relates to how the law applies and how it will affect others.
So crossing the T's and dotting the I's.
Correct.
Not really in trial.
Right now. So the thing is this. You have a lot of judges who are on courts of appeal. You have a lot of judges who are on Supreme Courts that have never tried a case. They haven't really been involved in trying cases. So they don't know what it means to have someone sitting in the chair and then in the witness stand, and then, what the real tension that's going on within the courtroom. Is totally devoid. So what you have is a bunch of scholars who are just sitting up making determinations, and they doing it in a scholarly manner because it's just a scholarly exercise to them, but it's impacting people. You follow what I'm saying? It's impacting people because those decisions have effects. Example, Court of Appeals judge might say, well, if we grant this, then that means we're going to have, it's going to be 10,000 of these cases. Well, let's find a way where we're going to deny it. They deny it. Well, the person who got denied could have been wrongfully. It could have been a situation where it should have been granted. But that's not just what they're looking at, because a lot of times they haven't been in the courtroom to even have a real idea of what's going on. So her having that public defender background is something that's really important. Now, of course, Republicans, they never want for trying anything, right? So now what they're trying to do, they're trying to use her public defender background as a speed bump against her. Because during the time period that she was a public defender, she represented 4 individuals that were down in Guantanamo Bay that were supposed to be terrorists, right? Now, it turns out all 4 of those cases that she worked on ended up where there were no charges brought against these people. They all were returned home. But I'm reading articles about Josh Haley from Missouri. Mm-hmm. She's soft on crime. She's representing terrorists, things of that nature, which plays into this whole Trump narrative about, supposed to be law and order and all that kind of stuff, even though he was the most lawless person I've ever been in. There you go again. He's the most lawless that you've ever seen, right?
There you go.
But the thing is this.
You paid for the show. Go ahead. Proceed.
But the thing is this. So they have, so now that's going to be their angle, all right? Now that's really not a winner. Why not? Because number one, she's a public defender.
That's what she's supposed to do.
Right. They assign the cases to her. The court says, right, XY person does not have money, I'm going to assign the public defender to your case. It's not like she put out a sign saying, I want all terrorists or people at Guantanamo Bay to be my clients. That's who was assigned to her. You follow what I'm saying? So how is that a problem? So I've seen a couple of Republicans like John Kennedy from Louisiana. He says, well, that's nothing. That's not anything that I'm going to get caught up about. But they still trying other tacks. So now what they're going to try to say is, well, we can't really hold the public defender thing against it too much. I mean, we're gonna bring it up, but it's not gonna really stick.
Right.
So why don't we look at her judicial history, right? Because what we have to understand is this.
Why are they doing all this in the first place?
Well, the thing is this. Looking at her judicial history and her background is something that should be expected, right? But the thing is that you just can't make stuff up just to try to flip it one way or another. So after she became a public defender and things of that nature, she became a federal district judge, all right? So now you remember I just went through the different levels of a judge. So she has actually, as a public defender, been in trials, right? As a district court judge, she has conducted trials, right? So she's able to see those things that may not make it upstairs to the Court of Appeals and to the Supreme Court that are day-to-day things that are problems. She has seen those things. You follow what I'm saying? So again, we have that perspective. They are now looking through her judicial criminal decisions, and now they're trying to say she's soft on crime because she allegedly has given less time to pedophile, sexual pornography defendants than other people. And they're highlighting 7 cases, they say. Now, it turns out from things I have read that of the 7 cases, she either gave what was recommended or more in 5 of the 7 cases. And then in 2 of the other cases, there may have been some, divergence. But, that happens as it relates to representing clients. One of my good friends and office mates, Michael Lowe, is an attorney, and he has had great history with respect to those kind of child pornography cases, that he has represented people where he has been able to get courts to deviate below the guidelines based upon different analysis that have been done, counseling that people have received, things of that nature to show that their likelihood of reoffending is low. But that's just what people do. That's what we do as attorneys. So that being the case,
that's your job.
That's her job. And so she has to listen to those things and make those determinations. But to pull out 1 or 2 cases out of an 8 or 9 year career as a district court judge, and then try to say that somebody's soft on crime over 6 or 7 cases, that's just really crazy to me. But, that's what we expect. That's the kind of stuff that they play because we're talking about the hypocrisy. Now, the bottom line is this. All that aside, she's going to get.
Then why go through all this in the first place?
Because it's politics, eh? What they're trying to do is they're going to want to go back as we go to the November midterms. Oh, Biden put the affirmative action girl on the court, right?
So that's what this is really about.
That's really what this is about. Yeah.
Not about whether or not she sits there, but whether or not we can get some political leverage out of it.
The political leverage. What else is there to it? All the Democrats, we got enough Democrats.
Including what, Manchin?
Include Manchin. We need 50 votes to place her on the court. If it's a 50-50 tie, then we get to do what? We get to bring in Kamala Harris. She hits the big gavel, and we win.
So, with Manchin then, is it a 50-50 or what? What is it projected to be?
Well, everyone has indicated that they anticipate, and even Mitch McConnell has said that he anticipates that she will be confirmed. You know, now whether some Republicans come along or not, I'm not sure, right? But I have not heard any Democrat breaking ranks. And when we go through the qualifications that I've just outlined, what is there to break ranks about? I mean, you're looking at me funny like that, like it could happen. Huh?
No, well, yeah, I'm looking at you, you know, because I just don't trust, you know.
You don't trust Manchin?
Nah, I don't trust.
You don't trust Sinema?
Nah.
Yeah, I think they'll be there for this.
They'll be here for this. Well, what can we do to help the situation out?
Well, the thing is this. What we need to do, you know, it's so hard for us as Texans, right? Because, number one, we've got Cruz and we've got Cornyn, and, you know, they're going to do whatever Trump tells them or, you know, whatever.
Cruz is going to be against it?
Oh, I'm pretty sure he will, yeah. Cruz has been one of the people. You know, I mean, he's been jumping up and down like a little, you know.
Okay.
Whatever, yeah,
okay.
You know.
But all politics being local, we need to bring this back to the local level, and we need to hold, Cruz and Cornyn too.
Well, we can, and we can do those things. You know, we can call them, we can email them, we can let them know that we want them to confirm this nominee. But I don't care how much we call or whatever. I doubt very seriously that
Even Cornyn, he has a judicial background too.
Well, he does. Well, I mean,
he was a judge.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see. If he does, it would surprise me. But the thing, what we also need to understand is while all politics is local, we also need to understand that this is a national issue.
Right.
And so that being the case, there may be other senators in other jurisdictions that can be swayed. And we may need to make calls to them also.
Like who?
Well, I mean, if you're worried about Manchin, you may want to send something up to Manchin and say, hey, look, we need you to follow the Democratic line, and you need to vote to confirm, right? If you're concerned about Sinema, you could do the same thing. So there are people, if you have any concerns about them that somebody needs to be buttressed up, you should do that. If there are certain Republicans that you think that may be swayed, like Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, or either Susan Collins of Maine, those individuals, or either what's my man Mitt Romney from Utah, those are individuals in the past that have made some votes that seem to be more of a mid position, and we may need to make outreach to those individuals to say, as Americans, right, dealing with a national issue such as a confirmation of a Supreme Court justice, that we want you to vote yes.
Now, how are they leaning?
Well, they have been non-committal. You know, at one point there was a lady before Ketanji Brown Jackson was nominated. There was a Supreme Court justice from South Carolina, right, that was being considered. Her name escapes me right now. But Lindsey Graham, who is Republican, was really, and Rick, what's the brother's name? Scott, Rick Scott, Tim Scott. He's from South Carolina, and they were really pushing for her, and as if they would have supported her. So whether somebody like Lindsey Graham, now Lindsey Graham in the past has said, and he has voted for Democrats, for nominees that were nominated by Democrats in the past, taking into account that a president, by winning the election, should have the right to be able to name their person, as long as they're not, you know. So
those are the people we can.
Yeah, those are people that we could reach out to.
Now, has KBJ been approved by the Senate before?
She has. She had to be approved by the Senate to be a district court judge. And then she was nominated, and you know, we've talked about so many accolades for the lady. I hadn't even mentioned the fact that she was appointed last year to the Court of Appeals of the D.C. Circuit, which handles a lot of important cases, because the D.C. Circuit handles those cases that are dealing with the government. So she has been on that Court of Appeals court as of last year, and she just went through the confirmation process and garnered Democratic and Republican support.
It should be a no-brainer this time.
It should be a no-brainer, but the thing is this, what we said. This isn't about whether, what's the right legal thing to do, anything of that. This is about what? This is about politics and how can we spin it, how can we play it for the election.
And we're playing it right here.
Yeah, we're playing it right here. The thing is, everybody needs to be aware of it. Everybody needs to know what your position is. Everybody needs to be able to effectuate your position and put pressure where pressure can be placed.
So summing it up as we go to a close, what are we going to do here?
Well, what we're going to do is number one, we need to be mindful that the process is ongoing. A lot of times stuff is going on that impacts black folks, righteous people, people who are just thinking in the right frame of mind, and we don't even know things are happening. So, the first thing we have to acknowledge is that the confirmation hearing is starting on Monday. It's going to be a days process. So we need to be able to watch that. We need to be able to comment on it. We need to be able to reach out to the deciders in this case. And the deciders in this case are those senators that are giving advice and counsel to the president's nomination of the Supreme Court justice. And the bottom line is this, everybody, like I said, it's all about politics, because the thing is this, Stephen Breyer is what they considered a liberal moderate justice in the first place. She's going to be taking his place. So the balance of the Supreme Court is not going to be changed. The things that they did to steal the seat from Obama and to steal that second seat from Biden by pushing Amy Coney Barrett through there, we can't, this isn't going to alleviate those. It's not going to alleviate that. But the thing is that it will place someone on the court who could be there for the next 20 years, that as the court evolves and changes, can have a real pivotal position with respect to the court and the direction it'll have in the future.
All right, well, you got it. All right, you just nailed it.
All right.
Hey, thank you for coming by, Michael J. Todd.
Right. Well, I ain't coming by. This is my house.
Yeah,
On the third Saturday, on the third Saturday of the month. Talking about coming by. Hey, like Ronald Reagan said, man, I paid for this microphone today.
You did, Michael G. Todd. All right, thank you for listening and being part of Legal Standpoint with Michael J. Todd and the Commish Radio Show, and we will be back the third Saturday because he paid for that microphone. All right, see you guys later.